All of the footage you see in this video isn't mine and they belong to their respectful owners. The owners of the videos will be credited at the end of the video and in the description, as well as links to the original videos. Anyways, on to the video. In today's video, I'll be looking at Mega Man Zero audio dramas, Ciel's Memory, Telos, and Physis. In this video, I'll be reviewing all 18 tracks from Ciel's Memory, Telos, and Physis. I'll be going over what the tracks added and expand on across all 4 Zero games. However, I won't be summarizing the plots of the games because I'll make the video too long. I also won't be talking about the voice acting because I don't speak Japanese. With that out of the way, let's dive into the video. The track begins with Ciel reflecting on the events of Mega Man Zero and the legendary ruins where Zero was sleeping. Afterwards, the opening cutscene from Zero 1 plays out the same, where Ciel and the Resistance soldiers are heading towards the legendary ruins while being pursued by Neo Arcadian soldiers. After Ciel and 2 Resistance soldiers arrive at the legendary ruins, Ciel hears a mysterious voice telling her to not get involved with him. Ciel wonders whose voice it is, and the mysterious voice asks her what does she plan to do by waking him. Ciel wonders what that voice was, and before she was able to process what the mysterious voice was, Milon asks her if something's wrong and she tells him it's nothing. She tells them to move on ahead and begs Zero to help her. After Zero defeats the golem, she stands there in shock that Zero cut down a golem that they couldn't even scratch in the blink of an eye. She thought all their efforts were for nothing until she saw him standing before her. She asks him if he's the legendary Zero, and Zero asks her if that's his name because he can't remember. She apologizes to Zero for forcing him to wake up and begs him to lend her his power. He asks her what will she do if he's not Zero, and she tells him he's already Zero in her eyes. After Zero says the red place in the hidden base, Ciel says his power is far greater than what they imagine and that everyone's hope returned to them. She also says they have one obstacle left, the 4 guardians of Master X. Meanwhile, on Neo Arcadia, Fafnir wonders why they were called just to take care of the Resistance and wonders why they can't just let the X-Bots do it. Arcadia scolds him and tells him it's a direct order from Master X. Fafnir tells him here someone from the Resistance did a number on him and that he's going to lose his place as a guardian at this rate. Leviathan shows up and complains about them bickering like children. She also says the Resistance will retreat if they hear about them and asks Phantom if he agrees with her. He tells her the enemy isn't the Resistance but Zero and that you shouldn't underestimate his abilities or it will lead to her destruction. Ironically, Phantom is the one that's killed by Zero and not Leviathan. Anyways, back to the audio drama. She tells Phantom that she hasn't seen him get worked up like that in a while. She also says it's starting to get interesting and that it should be a good time killer. Arcadia says they won't let the Resistance do what they want and that Zero will pay for defying Master X with his life. After Zero went to Neo Arcadia to take care of Copy X, Ciel reveals that she made Copy X when the real X disappeared and that she's the one that awakened Zero in the ruins. She also says Zero left their side to protect them and to fight Copy X and that no one knows what the future will bring. Meanwhile, in Neo Arcadia, the cutscene plays out the same where Copy X tells Zero that humans have found happiness more than ever at Neo Arcadia and that it's a place that he nor the original X could never create. Zero tells him it's a peace maintained by killing innocent replicas and that he and the world are fakes. Copy X tells him he's as entertaining as he thought he would be and that he's glad he has someone to have fun with. After Zero defeats Copy X's first form, he calls him too weak and wonders if the original X was this weak. Copy X tells him he'll make him regret saying that and powers up. While Copy X is powering up, Zero says he hasn't forgotten X's strength and that the real X can do better than this. After Zero defeats Copy X, he wonders why he can't defeat Zero. Zero tells him he's too simple and that the real X was a hero because he was worried about everything. Copy X tells him he won't forgive him and blows himself up in an attempt to take Zero out with him. After Zero escapes Neo Arcadia, Ciel says attacks from Neo Arcadia became less frequent and that they left their old base and that they are moving through the desert. She also says they're on a journey to find a different way to stop the problems of the world. She also believes that Zero is somewhere out there and is watching the same sun as them. The track begins with X telling Zero he's the only one that can do this and he goes on to tell Zero the horrors of the effects of war. He also tells him as he slowly fades into the abyss, century-old memories of them fighting together on the battlefield come to mind and that he still remembers Zero's last words from a century ago. Back in the Elf Force, X says they aren't fighting to hurt people and that they only want a world where anyone can join hands. Zero tells Omega that he finally understands what he's been fighting for all this time and that his power is meant to protect the people he believes in and not for destruction. Zero and X tell Omega to be gone and defeat him with the final strike. As a side note, I think the final strike is X's Nova Strike and Zero's Giga Attack combined into one attack. Anyways, back to the audio drama. After the end of the Elf Wars, the scientist tells X there isn't a lot of time left until Zero is completely sealed. He also tells X Zero's functions are beginning to shut down and he isn't sure if X can have a meaningful conversation with him. After X hears this, he runs towards Zero's castle and asks him if he's okay with this. He also asks Zero how could they do this to him after how hard he fought. Zero tells him history will continue to be filled with blood if he still exists and he wonders why replics must fight against each other. He also tells X that he continued to believe in the humans and he trusts him as a friend and he trusts the humans he believes in. X tells him to stop the stealing process, but Zero tells him it's fine and that the rest is up to him. Back in the present, a reploid of the New Arcadia Bureau Administration is about to introduce himself, before he remembers he doesn't have a name. So to identify himself, he uses a serial number, which is TK31, and it's the closest thing he has to a name. TK31 says, to maintain New Arcadia, the need arises for a large quantity of mass-produced reploids, and in addition, a few of them are privileged enough to have actual names. He goes on to say there was a human society that was filled with peace, and a reploid society that ran on numbers, a system that he treasured because it was ran so beautifully, until he took that name and carved it into his own being. Sometime after 01, TK31 and his group were sent to collect stored data at an old marine library by Harpuya. After Harpuya leaves, TK31 says Harpuya supports Master X's administration from the sidelines, and that it shouldn't be a surprise that he wants to visit the site personally. After the group makes it to the sunken library, they wonder why there's so many doors and why the power is on. TK31 thought he lost his mind because he heard something calling him, so he wandered off to the data room, which was in the center of the sunken library. When he arrived there, he found a chunk of forbidden history that was hidden away in darkness. At the time, he didn't know the terrible fate that lied before him. While in the data room, he stumbles across the dark elf that nearly destroyed the world criminal Dr. Wow, the end of the elf wars, and the reploid subjugation operation. He also discovers Master X's and Omega's records and wonders what kind of records are they. He also remembers that someone said that there were baby elves that were made back in the war and that they were being held in a research facility. He sees that history is rewinding to the Maverick Wars, the Sigma Antibody Program, and the Mother Elf. He even discovers the name of the project, Elpazio, until Harpuya sees him in the data room and asks him what's wrong. Harpuya tells him it's meaningless for someone like him to submit to a past controversy, and he tells him to forget everything he saw. After the survey, TK31 returns to New Arcadia, and he thought the incident was a hallucination of some sort. He also thought that no matter what he saw, his feelings about New Arcadia won't change. Elsewhere, a reploid is complaining about their energy quotas being more strict. TK31 tells him the Administration Bureau reploids that are treated well, so he has nothing to complain about. The reploid tells him the irregular arrest rate has increased by 8%. The reploid also tells him that there's been a lot of talk about a group that was retired with no abnormalities. He goes on to tell him about the group that escaped and started an armed uprising to rebel against New Arcadia. TK31 asks him what he's saying and who he is. The reploid introduces himself as HE22, and he manages the Environmental Bureau Preserves. TK31 asks him about the preserves before he remembers HE22 presented the report on the survey. He tells TK31 that he's the one that made the survey. He also tells him that the submerged city was removed from the records and that something dangerous is happening. TK31 tells him he'll call the police if he keeps it up. HE22 tells him that he doesn't understand what's happening to the reploids that were in that survey. Suddenly, Harpuya shows up and tells TK31 that he's been labeled as an irregular for betraying the state and that he's taking him into custody. Logically, TK31 is confused about what the hell he's talking about. Isn't it obvious, TK31? You saw something you were supposed to see. Do you really think they're gonna let you off the hook for that? Sorry, I just had to point that out, because imagine if you saw something that the government didn't want you to see. Do you really think they're gonna let you go home scot-free or let you live? No. Anyways, back to the audio drama. Harpuya tells him that regard anyone who resists as irregulars and that they'll be killed. Before he can finish, an explosion goes off and the gunfight begins. During the gunfight, TK31 and HE22 use this time to escape. While they're running, TK31 is confused that they'll think he'll do something like that. Afterwards, TK31 and HE22 escape to the sewers. While in the sewers, HE22 tells him to keep it together and that the intelligence he has is absolutely necessary to free their comrades that will be killed for false claims. He goes on to tell him that they've been watching closely for the perfect time to bust him out since he knows New Arcadia's secrets and that he was involved in the survey. He also tells them that they should leave the sewers, set up a base, and recruit resistance members to make preparations for rebellion. TK31 tells them that he still has something to do in New Arcadia. He also tells them they should go to the research facility in Area 7. HE22 tells him he's insane if he wants to go there in the middle of tight security. TK31 tells him he wants to know what's happening there, and HE22 tells him what is he saying is there. TK31 laughs and tells him to start calling him by his serial name and that his real name is actually Elpazio and that he's the chosen one to become a hope of all reploids being prosecuted in New Arcadia. To accomplish this, he'll need the power of the baby elves. He continues to lose his mind by begging for more power, which will eventually lead to Elpazio destroying X. I like how HE22 doesn't say anything or react during Elpazio's descent to power. During the beginning of 02, Alouette says they've had an ollie-colored baby elf. After Zero defeats Hyleg or Ourobockle, he brought back another baby elf for them as a souvenir. Alouette says the two baby elves roughly appear to be like twins. She goes on to say they always seem like they're having fun and that it makes her happy to see that. She also says she knows she's in Ciel's way and that she wants to see the baby elves again. She also asks the baby elves if they will be good elves when they grow up. After she asks them that, she realizes it's kinda weird she just kept calling them you two all the time and sets out to find them names. While Alouette is searching for names for the baby elves, Ciel is studying the baby elves and she wonders how could two small bodies emanate so much energy. Elsewhere, Alouette says that Ciel is the one who named her and that she really likes it. She also says Ciel's been really busy with her research and Asura says she stayed up late again. She remembers the operators and thinks they might come up with good names. She wishes Ciel luck with her research and heads off to see the operators. Ciel is confused and it takes her a moment before she realizes Alouette came by a few seconds ago and she says she didn't even notice her because she was too absorbed into her research. She also says she's no better than New Arcadia if she can't notice anyone around her. Elsewhere, Alouette asks operators, Rouge and Gina, or Juna, if they have any names for the baby elves in Ciel's room. Rouge is confused why she'll name baby elves. Alouette says she tried to come up with names but she can't think of any good names. The operators understand that they'll try to search for names that are suitable for two baby elves. Alouette thanks them and wonders if it's going to work. Afterwards, Rouge asks her how about Anoid and Captoid. Alouette asks her what do those names even mean and Rouge tells her those names refer to positive and negative terminals in a vacuum tube or battery. She goes on to say she thinks those names are very fitting for cyber elves. Alouette says those names sound complex. Juno jokingly suggests plus and minus before Alouette asks if it's something similar to those names out of old books. Rouge remembers the books humans used ages ago, and she asks her how does crime and punishment sound. She goes on to say those names came from an author's 19th century book of the same name who has a name I'm not even going to try to pronounce. She goes on by stating all the influences and themes the book has as well as summarizing what the book is about. During her summary, Alouette says it doesn't sound cute, and Juno suggests cute names like love and peace. She says those names sound kinda cute while Rouge suggests another pair of names like Azul, Luna, and Rodro Sul. She also tells Alouette the meaning of the names, which are names given to software in the 21st century are Blue Moon and Red Sun for short. Alouette is curious about the names while Juno suggests yet another pair of names like Blank Cut and Noor, which mean white and black. She also says that it will be easy to tell the two apart and that it's easy to remember. Rouge suggests Technos and Thenos, while Juno comments that the names she came up with sound bland and that she's making it hard on Alouette, which begins in a hilarious argument. She goes on to say that she'll think it would be easier to stick to simple names like Caesaro or Virgo. Rouge argues that all she's done is complain and stick to simplistic names like White, Black, Zakra, and Maiden. She also says she's so careless that she almost transferred Zero inside a wall the other day. Wait a minute, how the hell do you almost make the mistake of killing Zero? Imagine if they accidentally kill Zero by transferring him inside a wall and explaining to Ciel what happened to him. I'm pretty sure that'll go well. Anyway, Juno tells her she'll supposed to keep that a secret and listen to her about Operation Right to Strike by saying if she even slightly changes the input parameters, the plan falls apart. I mean, that plan was gonna fail anyway because the resistance soldiers aren't strong enough to go against New Arcadia. The argument continues with Juno saying she needs to pay more attention to things while Rouge asks if she finished the job while Paizo asked her. She also says don't cry to her when she couldn't finish it on time while Juno gets on her for trying to change the topic. She goes on to say whenever it starts to get bad, she tries to dip out the conversation and bring up something else and add it's a bad habit. During the argument, Albert runs off and wonders who could she ask because everyone else is busy with many different things and wonders who has a lot of spare time on their hands. After a bit of thinking, she decides to ask Mr. Andrew. When she gets there, Andrew thinks she's there to buy donuts before she tells him she's not there for donuts and asks him if he likes telling stories. He tells her he likes to tell stories and asks her if she wants to hear one of his stories. She says yes and Andrew begins the story. He goes on to tell her about his past life as a teacher, a bread worker, and a seller until she interrupts him and says that's not what she came for. Andrew is confused until she tells him she's been thinking about naming the Baybills while he's telling her he thought her name was Alouette before she tells him the names are for the Baybills. Andrew asks her wouldn't a child's name be good for the baby elves. She agrees and he begins to tell her the story about his teaching days. During the story, he tells her about two human girls who loved singing and about the days when humans and birthplaces were in the same school. After a while, he goes off track about how he had to stop being a teacher and about his days as a security guard. Eventually, he saw the two human girls again at a crime scene. During his story, Zero shows up and she asks him if he could come up with any names for the Baybills. He says no before he talks about his fight against Hyleg or Ourobockle and that he was a tough opponent. Zero, you know that dude was one of the easiest bosses in the game, right? And whatever, he's probably just talking about his unique fighting style and his abilities. She asks Zero what does he think about the baby elf and he tells her it was very bizarre. She tells Zero he's a jerk while Andrew complains about kids that can't listen and Zero tells him that isn't it. Elsewhere, Alouette says that no one cares about baby elves until Ciel notices her and apologizes for the whole baby elves thing. She goes on to say it's kinda sad if the baby elves don't have names and Alouette asks her if the baby elves are good and if they're gonna help everyone. Ciel tells her that's correct and that if she studies the baby elves more, she'll find clues to a new energy source. Alouette says that she's been praying for the baby elves to make a new energy source for everyone and Ciel thanks her and that she'll do the best she can. Alouette says she hopes her prayers can reach them and Ciel says why not just give them names based on what Alouette was just thinking. Alouette is confused about what she meant and Ciel tells her that her thoughts will reach them soon. Alouette rethinks about what she was thinking about a few seconds ago until she thinks of creating and praying and asks Ciel if they can make names out of them. Ciel thinks of Carrie and Prairie as names for the baby elves. Alouette asks her if they can name the baby elves that and asks her what does she think about it. Ciel tells her she thinks it's great and that it fits them very well. Alouette asks her if they can go to her room and tell the baby elves their names. Ciel agrees and tells her she'll fix her doll while they're there. Elsewhere, 8 Reploid judges are discussing the crimes of the TK series of Reploids and that they must be severely punished. They go on to say in the name of Lord X to classify him as an irregular and that he'll be retired for scrap. Copy X says the case of irregular security is adjourned. After the case, Inowar Beta says he doesn't understand Master X's judgment on the case and Fox here tells him as judges they aren't perfect to the point they can verify the circumstances Master X used as a defense. Inowar Beta argues that it's unknown what he saw and he asks her if she thinks classifying him as an irregular without extensive thinking was too hasty a decision and that they had a lot of time to discuss it. Mantis says if it had taken someone's life of his blades, there'll be a lot to deal with and that his dull blades are proof of peace. Calvin tells Mantis there are humans who can't get over their fears of irregulars and that the laws they protect are for the human's sake. He goes on to say Master X changed before Arcadia shows up and tells him that he'll pretend he didn't hear what he said about Master X. He goes on to say that the recent increase in irregulars is because of their incompetence as the 4 Guardians is to blame. Arcadia, I think you mean the 3 Guardians because Phantom's dead, but go on. He also thinks it could have been his fault for today's verdict. Calvin tells Arcadia to take care of himself and that he's a light of hope just like Master X. He goes on to tell him that they can use their regular reserve troops as a battleground for treacherous thoughts and that New Arcadia was originally meant to be a place where humans and Reploids can live in peace. After the events of Zero 2, Fafnir and Leviathan are trying to fight against Omega but their attacks aren't doing anything to him. While Fafnir and Leviathan are fighting Omega, Arcadia talks about how Omega nearly destroyed the world and that once he saw someone calling himself Dr. Wild appear before him, he finally realized that New Arcadia was nothing more than an illusion. He goes on to say that everything he's done with his friends and all the enemies he fought against were nothing more than a dream. He also says all the power and deception reveal a history filled of madness. Elsewhere, two mysterious voices are talking about the return of Master X and that he's canceling Wild's exile from near Arcadia and assigning him as a government official. One of them suspects that Wild and Master X are up to something, that they should arrest him before anything bad happens. Meanwhile, Harpuya acts as a subordinate to Howard Fafnir and Leviathan's condition. The subordinate tells him Dr. Wild's orders are the highest priority and that the maintenance and medical support team are very busy at the moment. Later on, 3 human doctors show up and tell Harpuya that they came as fast as they could when they heard the severe injuries of them two. They also tell him there isn't much we humans can do to help, and Harpuya apologizes and asks them how are they doing. They tell him they did the best they could and that they lost consciousness right after the transfer was complete. They also tell him that the condition is critical and that they don't know when they'll wake up. While they were talking, the Ourobockle judges show up and Ourobockle tells Harpuya he's pretty slow for someone who can fly. He also tells him to get rid of the 2 pieces of scrap metal to free up space. Before Harpuya can process what he just said, Mantis asks him if he needs help to dispose of his friends and that he's about to lose his job for failing to stop the resistance so many times. He also tells him near Arcadia doesn't have enough energy to waste on useless people like him. Harpuya tells him to watch what he says and that Fafnir and Leviathan fought against the Ourobockle to prevent history from repeating itself. Calvin tells him to stop whining and that they had to make preparations for a little while and that his friends aren't important. Harpuya is confused about what the hell he's talking about, and so Fox here tells him while he was wasting time, Lord Wild gave them an upgrade. And Ourobockle tells him he's too slow on the uptake and that they're going to take care of Zero since he couldn't do it. He also tells him there isn't enough space for Lord Wild's research and to get lost. Harpuya tells them he won't leave the future of Near Arcadia and humans to their twisted ideas of justice any longer. Meanwhile, in cyberspace, X tells Phantom he's glad that they can see each other again, and Phantom tells him in his current state he'll be able to meet with him here. X asks him if he already knows about Zero, and Phantom tells him he knows everything. X tells him Zero is fighting for humans and Reploids, and he asks him to learn his power. He tells him the only light he serves is him, and he asks him if his sword of fidelity will be enough to protect humans and Reploids. He also tells him he too will become the Blade. X tells him he has to change, and Phantom tells him loyalty doesn't simply change just like that. He tells him he understands and now he trusts him. He also tells him he trusts Zero as well and that by now he has overcome everything. X and Phantom wonder if Zero defeated Omega yet and go to see for themselves. X asks Fafnir and Leviathan if they're okay, and Phantom tells them to wake up because Master X is here. Leviathan wakes up and she's shocked to see Master X while Fafnir asks if they're both dead. Phantom tells them they're drifting between life and death and that he has been dead for a while now. He also tells them they should return and depart from them. X tells them there's something he needs to ask them, and Leviathan wonders what his request is. X informs them that Dr. Wild is brainwashing every Reploid on the planet thanks to the Dark Elf and Omega's resonance. After hearing this, Fafnir and Leviathan are shocked to hear that Dr. Wild is taking control of the Dark Elf. X also tells them there's a possibility the Elf Force could repeat again, and in order to prevent it, they need to stop the brainwashing, which can't be done by just Zero or only the 2 Guardians. Fafnir concludes X wants them to help Zero, and he agrees as long as he gets to kill Zero. Leviathan agrees with Fafnir, and she goes on to say that she'll never be friends with Zero. X looks at them and goes,
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
Leviathan tells him that is the case, but with people like Dr. Wild, she has no choice but to help Zero. Fafnir agrees and says before he kills Zero, he needs to pay back Omega. X tells them to protect the weak from Wild and Omega's dangerous influence. They tell X to leave it to them and that they'll do whatever it takes to stop Omega. Fafnir asks Phantom what he's gonna do, and Phantom tells him he's unsure at the moment. Leviathan agrees and says it could be a while before the 4 Guardians reunite. X tells them it's time to return to that world and protect it. He goes on to say the only people who can protect the world are those who live in it. Elsewhere, Harpuya is slashing his way through Wild's forces and he says he can't take on that many soldiers before some explosions go off, and Fafnir jumps in to help him out. Fafnir tells him he's shocked to see him complaining and that it's a good thing that he showed up when he did. Leviathan shows up and tells Harpuya it's uncommon to see him with a puzzled look on his face before helping out with the wave of enemies. Harpuya tells them they're late and Leviathan tells them they came as fast as they could and that she's a little rusty. She also tells them she wants to finish this as quickly as possible so she can relax in the pool and the maintenance gym. Fafnir tells her that's too bad because they're only dropping by for a little bit. That and he returned from meeting Master X. Fafnir tells Harpuya they need to defeat Wild and Omega. Harpuya understands and tells him that Wild is currently the ruler of Near Arcadia and that following him will be betraying Near Arcadia, and he asks them if they're okay with that. Leviathan laughs and wonders if he ever asked them for their opinion, and Fafnir tells her this is the first time he asks for their opinion because he used to order them around. Harpuya agrees and tells them they're going to defeat Wild and Omega. He also tells her they're not fighting for the name of Near Arcadia or for their jobs as the 4 Guardians. Fafnir and Leviathan tell him they're fighting for humans and what they believe in. Harpuya tells them it's time to go and they all prepare for battle. Before they fight, Harpuya says the future is hidden in the shadows beyond the door, and he also talks about the meaning of each element as a guardian. He also says they will become light itself to guide the world and that they will continue to fight for humans even if they're killed in the process. The track begins with Naiji talking about the creation of Reploids and how they were given personality and free will to make them as close to humans as possible. She goes on to say the Reploids were supposed to become their partners until they started to rebel against their creators, and those kinds of Reploids were labeled as Irregulars. So humans decided to make the Reploids to dispose of the Irregulars. She goes on to say the Reploids that fought to protect their creators couldn't make their own choices, which eventually sparked a Reploid war with no one knowing when it will end. She also says when the Utopia near Arcadia was created, the battle still continued, with the leader of Near Arcadia being defeated by Irregulars who wanted freedom. Currently, Near Arcadia is now ruled by the war criminal Dr. Wall, and that Near Arcadia isn't what it used to be. She also says many people, including them, are escaping Near Arcadia from Wall's rule. After her inner monologue, her and her human resistance are trying to escape from Near Arcadia, but Wall's forces are chasing them and climbing onto their vehicles. While they're trying to escape, Zero and the mobile resistance show up to help them out. A handful of stages later, Zero heads to the prison to save Naiji. After he slashes the door open, he sees Naiji, who asks him why he's there, and he tells her the people at the settlement asked him to save her. Naiji thanks him, and she asks him if she could talk with Kraft for a bit. He asks her if Kraft is a friend of hers, and she tells him Kraft saved her from a group of irregulars who attacked her in her early days as a reporter. She goes on to say that she eventually fell in love with Kraft because he was a proud warrior that fought to protect humans, and that she finds it odd that a human would fall in love with a Reploid. After she says that, Zero remains silent as if saying, "Yo dog, it's okay, I'm into that stuff too." After her backstory, Kraft shows up and tells Zero he fell in love with a human that fought to expose the truth to others and that she hasn't changed. He goes on to say once she puts her mind to something, she goes through with it regardless of how dangerous it is. She tells him he's changed and that he used to fight for humans out of his thoughts, but now he's just Wild's servant. He tells her that she doesn't understand anything and that Dr. Wild plans to destroy all nature along with all humans who live outside of New Arcadia. He also tells her that's why he joined Wild's army, so he can search for her and protect her along with the humans and Reploids that are living in New Arcadia. He goes on to say they need to protect the few resources they have left in order to survive, even if that means they have to live under a sadistic dictator. She asks Kraft if that's the reason why he follows Wild, and that they have to steal the freedom of others and the few resources they have left as a way to survive. She goes on to question Kraft's ideals before Dr. Wild shows up and complains about the humans' idea of justice and that they exiled him from New Arcadia a century ago. It takes her a moment to realize that Dr. Wild is standing before her, and Dr. Wild asks Zero if he's been active lately because there's only 4 units remaining. He also tells Zero that he'll never start Ragnarok, and he asks Naiji if she's gonna await her death in Area Zero or live on under the rule of him, and that he doesn't care which one she chooses. This pisses Naiji off, but before she can say anything about it, Wild tells her he enjoys the face of pain, humiliation, and anger as a ruler. After Wild's speech, Kraft tells her there is no more justice anymore and that now it's only a fight for survival. He goes on to tell her he doesn't want her to die, and Wild asks Zero if he could kill him and become an irregular in front of Naiji. She tells Zero to close his eyes when she tells him to, and Wild asks them what are they going to do. She tells them she'd rather die and laugh than live life under his rule, and she blinds them with smokescreen as they escape. After they escape, Wild tells Kraft to resume Ragnarok and to show it to those who defy him. After Wild leaves the prison, Kraft thinks about what Naiji said about laughing death in the face. After Zero defeats the last 4 units, she heads to the control room to stop Dr. Wild from firing Ragnarok. While Zero is on his way to prevent it from firing, Kraft is in the control room setting up Ragnarok. While Kraft is setting up Ragnarok, he's changing the coordinates to strike the center of New Arcadia instead of Area Zero. While he's doing this, he knows Naiji isn't gonna forgive him, and he says he'd rather live life to the fullest and live as if he was dead. He also says most humans aren't as strong as her and that ideals can't save anyone. After Zero makes it to the boss room, he asks Ciel if the New Arcadia evacuation is going well. Ciel tells him the resistance is working on it. Before she can finish, Kraft fires Ragnarok and it messes the transmitter up. Zero enters the control room and tells Kraft don't let him fire Ragnarok again, and Kraft asks him what's it defeating Wild their goal. He informs Zero that Ragnarok is charging up again, and he tells him his actions will change the world. Zero asks him if he thinks Naiji will approve of what he's doing, and he tells him he knows what he's doing is no different than Wild and that he doesn't care if people think he's an irregular. He also says someone needs to set humanity on the right course, and if Zero can't do it, then he will. He tells him to let humanity correct themselves and that if he can't do that, he'll kill him. Kraft concludes he bears with the many mistakes of humanity, and he asks him if he's going to keep fighting until the humans redeem all the mistakes they made in the past 100 years. Zero tells him he made a promise to X that he intends to keep, but Kraft asks him if he's got anything else to say. He assumes he's done, and then the two fight. After Zero clears the boss rush, he makes his way to Ragnarok to stop her from firing again. When he gets there, he sees Dr. Wild, who gives him a front row seat to the destruction of Earth. Zero asks him how did he survive the Ragnarok attack, and he tells him he can't die. He informs Zero that after the end of the Elf Wars, the humans modified him and changed his memories into program data and stuffed his body into an armor that gives him new abilities, such as the ability to never age and the ability to regenerate injuries in an instant. He also tells Zero about the post-war world and that he's cursed to live forever to deal with the fact that humans exiled him from near Arcadia. Zero asks him if that's the reason he planned Operation Ragnarok, so he can have revenge on humanity. Dr. Wild tells him revenge isn't the only thing he's after and that he wants to make an ideal world for humans and Reploids. He also tells him that he'll rule over the Reploids and that wiping out humanity is just a very brief, painful death for them. After he finishes his speech, he transforms into his armor and tells Zero that he'll teach the humans that they have nowhere to run and that they can only live under his rule. Zero asks him if that's his ideals, and Wild tells him that's absurd, and the two fight. After Zero defeats Dr. Wild, he's surprised it didn't stop the descent, and Ciel tells him he's at the height limit and that if it falls any faster, she can't transfer him back. Suddenly, Dr. Wild shows up and tells Zero it isn't over yet, and he reminds him he can't die. He also tells him his efforts were in vain and that no one can stop Ragnarok now. Ciel tells him to come back before it's too late, and he tells her there's still a way to stop Ragnarok. He tells her if he destroys the core of Ragnarok along with Wow, it'll break apart and burn up in the atmosphere, and Ciel begs him to leave because it'll likely kill him. Wow asks him if he can go through with it because he's one of those humans he swore to protect. Zero tells him he isn't an ally of justice and he never called himself a hero. He also tells him he's only fought for the people he believes in and that he won't hesitate to kill an enemy. Ciel calls his name and Zero tells her to believe in him. The track ends with Ciel screaming his name in agony. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the voice acting, but the line delivery of that line was perfect. It actually made me tear up a bit the first time I heard it. Overall, the Mega Man Zero drama tracks are a great read/listen that fleshes out the story, adds new story beats, and it makes the story come to life. If you want to check it out yourself, I'll leave a link to the playlist I used to make this video in the description. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Anyways, peace out.